Pulitzer Prize winner and legendary American investigative journalist Seymour Hersh is best known for exposing the My Lai massacre in Vietnam. Since then, his investigations have continued to shake up Washington, from uncovering torture at Abu Ghraib to exposing secret U.S. military operations overseas, to his latest piece, which pokes holes in the commonly held assertion here in Washington that Iran is developing a nuclear weapons program. Mr. Hersh sits down with RT to discuss his latest story in the New Yorker magazine, where he accuses the Obama administration of allowing fear and not facts dictate a potentially disastrous foreign policy towards Iran. Mr. Hersh, thank you so much for sitting down with us. Based on your investigation, is the United States wrong to assume the worst when it comes to Iran?
If the fear is based on the notion that, that somehow Iran has a bomb or is going to get a bomb soon, that's ridiculous, because every bit of evidence they have from their own intelligence community, the people at the top of the American government know there's no weapons there. We've known that for years. We've been looking for years after years after years. We support a sanctions program that's designed to stop. The punishment is it's aimed at stopping the Iranians from doing something we know they're not doing. For me, and as I wrote in the article, the analogy between what they're doing, what Obama's doing with Iran, is very close to what Bush and Dick Cheney, the vice president then, did to Iraq. That is, they wanted to punish, they wanted to make a case against Iraq. They didn't like the politics. So we made a case about nuclear weapons. If you remember, they were talking about mushroom clouds. Make a case to go to war. I'm not suggesting these guys want to go to war. I mean, there are elements in America, certainly elements in Israel, that would love to see us attack Iran, but that would be suicidal.
If there's no actual evidence of the Iranians developing a nuclear weapons program, then why? Why the fear-mongering and the rhetoric, whether it's the administration or the mainstream media?
There's no evidence at all of weaponization. There's no evidence anywhere I went. You go to London, you go to the French, you go to the Germans. They all say the same thing. We still think they might want to go, but we don't have anything. It should be open and shut. We should move on, but we're not. Instead, what you're seeing is they're mau-mauing me and what I wrote, and they're ignoring it up to a point. There's always a group that doesn't ignore stuff, but the mainstream press, basically, they have their narrative, and they don't want to change the narrative. I've been writing about the secret operations we've had inside Iran in the New Yorker for about 5 years, because they started in late '04, maybe '05. Vice President Cheney was convinced there was a secret facility somewhere underground in Iran. And so our special forces units were going in. We went in through Herat in Afghanistan. We went in through Baluchistan in Pakistan. We've been going into Iran covertly with money and chemicals and support. Chemicals, I mean by plastic bombing, explosive materials. We've been dealing with the Jandela. We've been dealing with the Iranian Kurds, the Azeris, dissident groups inside Iran, with the goal of trying to find neutralizing their weapons program and finding their secret program. We found nada, nothing. And now there's been two internal, what I wrote about in the magazine is there's been two major internal studies known as national intelligence estimates, sort of the most sacrosanct documents we have in our government in terms of assessments. And they both said nothing there.
Well, the Obama administration disagrees with your assessment.
Oh yeah, I mean, big deal. I mean, I'm doing my job when the White House is mad at me. I couldn't care less. And by the way, from my point of view, these guys are they're no more straighter with us than the Bush White House was, and that's a shocking thing to say, but they're pretty much the same.
Why is the mainstream media not reporting this?
I get a lot of stuff from colleagues around the world who are more open than the American press is to its criticism of America. But I asked somebody, one of the guys was a Boston Globe guy, and who just said something nice to me. I said, well, why don't you write about it? If it's, you don't have to write my story, but pick up on it. He said, well, we're not going to give 2,000 words to the New Yorker. So you do talk about, there is now a sense with the internet and everybody competing for the fewer and fewer dollars that are out there, there's a sense of economic competitiveness too. But that's only part of it. The real issue is, the underlying main theme is the White House controls things in a way that they always do. And this White House is just as interested in controlling things. And when somebody like me comes out, you just kick me around, that's all. And it's easy to do because everybody's very eager. What you don't get now is, you get perfectly professional stories representing the view of the administration, but they're not getting anybody on the inside who's telling them a different story. And so we're stuck. We're stuck with the major newspapers reporting pretty much what the administration wants. And so when somebody like me goes up against them, it's the same story that happens on this story. It's happened in every story I've done since 9/11, really, every good one. What?
So why is it that you come out with a piece that says Iran is not the threat that it's made out to be, and you're suddenly considered a heretic?
It's not about me. It's almost institutional. As I said, they have a narrative. And the narrative is, Iran's bad. They're making bombs. Even if we can't find it, we know it must be there, right? They're evil people.
And so what's the consequence for the American public if they're not aware of this?
Most American public is right there with 24-hour cable, more interested on, on the latest stupid things some congressman did with the internet, and which is chronic and goes all the time.
Has the United States taken the right course in responding to the so-called Arab Spring?
We have such a, we view everything through an American prism. Everything's done, and it's Ptolemaic. We're like Ptolemy, who believed that the sun revolved around us, and we didn't revolve around that. Anyway, look, if you're an Iranian and you're in the Middle East, and you know what's going on in Bahrain, and you see the White House denounce Iran and criticize Iran, at the same time, everybody in Iran and everybody in the Middle East is watching what's going on in Bahrain, and we say nothing. What do you think that impact's going to be? Hypocrisy? There's no love for us in the middle, not in the Gulf anymore, because we've certainly betrayed the trust. And in the streets of Egypt, when Obama finally came and supported him, there was hooting. They were done with us. They wanted his support early, and so we've missed the boat on that. Those movements were probably the best tools we've had, certainly better than the use of force that we've been using, the night raids and all that stuff, and the renditions, and yet we've mucked that up. So it's a true mess. This administration is focused on Iran as the source of all evil, and Iran is helping the Syrian Mukhabarat do what it does in Syria, as if the Sunni Mukhabarat in Syria needs any help from anybody to get tough. They know how to do it.
But President Obama was elected because he was supposed to represent change. He was supposed to chart this country down a different course than the Bush administration.
Oh, come on. Don't get serious. I mean, come on. This is an election year. He wants to be reelected. The only hope a lot of us have is that in the second term, he's such a bright guy. In the second term, he'll become the Lincoln we thought he might be. But he's got a reelection. You could argue that he knows that getting Osama bin Laden is great, but he's going to be reelected on the price of oil and jobs. And when the oil's this high, the economy is tanking. The economy is tanking right now because we're paying $4.50 for oil, for gasoline a gallon. And so what's his big issue? His big issue is he's got to convince the Saudis he's got to make nice and look the other way as they mutilate people around the Middle East and spend their money, because he wants 2 million barrels more a day of oil. Is
oil more important than democracy for President Obama?
Well, duh. What do you think?
What's your assessment of the Obama administration's handling of the Afghanistan war?
Ghastly. D double minus. I mean, everybody, I'm telling you, even the most committed hawk, with the exception of General Petraeus and other people who have to say what they have to say, I know nobody who thinks we have any future in Afghanistan the faster we get out of there. I was talking to somebody the other day, a very conservative, very pro-war person, saying, I just the thought of another American life, and we see it in terms of Americans, not in terms of the Afghans. It drives me crazy. Then no more. It's not worth it. Not worth one more life. And what's going on there is ghastly. Just ghastly. It's out of control. The leadership's fallen. When you have a bunch of boys running around in fear of death, from a landmine.
Although Iraq, of course, is still unraveling.
Oh, Iraq is, as we talk, day by day. Iraq's going to be probably Obama's biggest problem next year. And it's going to be a very tough call about whether he stays or goes with the troops. If he keeps troops there, he's got Muqtada Sadr and the more extreme Shia going after us. It's going to be bad.
You've reported on the Vietnam War, you've reported on conflicts throughout the years, throughout the decades. What happened to the learning curve?
Oh, come on. A learning curve in America? What? There is no learning curve. We don't learn from the past mistakes. We haven't.
You've spent your life exposing this.
Yeah, well, but I'm also a realist. The fact of the matter is that that we could go into another country about which we knew very little, with no language, and think we could change a society. Going into our, we think we could do that. I mean, was there a learning? You know, what did we learn? What did we learn from Vietnam? We went into Grenada. We couldn't even win that one very well. You know, that was sort of silly. So there was an improvement in the press. I think when Ronald Reagan went into Nicaragua, the Salvadorian, there was more criticism. So I thought maybe we'd learn something from Vietnam. But the last 10 years showed me 9/11. Part of it was America wanted payback. We were scared. The reason we, you know, I would argue that the American press totally failed after 9/11. We became George Bush's cheerleader and his partner instead of looking critically at things. And that's happening now to a degree.
Mr. Hersh, thank you so much for your time.